Welcome everyone to another Meet the Author, and today I have the lovely Kate, or Katherine Bradley. I think she's known as both. And I met Kate recently at the I Am in Print festival, where she was taking a workshop, and I literally screenshotted everything that was on the screen that day to remember for key things for myself when I'm doing my thriller writing. So she's exceptional, not only with the way that she presented her workshops, but also with her books in itself, which her first book I'm reading just now and I'm adoring. So I look forward to hearing more from Kate. So I'm going to hand over to you, Kate. Kick the show off by telling us a little bit about you and a little bit about a day in the life of you.
Thanks very much. It's lovely to be here. A day in the life of me, usually pretty busy, I have to say. So I teach English part-time. I deal with teenagers and I would never want to sit at home full-time writing. I don't think I would actually get more done. I think if I had all day to write, I would just not get out of my pajamas. I would eat a lot of biscuits and probably only write about 200 words. There's something about that time imperative, isn't it? When you're a busy person and you've got kids and pets and jobs and stuff like that, that frantic writing sort of late at night really works for me. So that's my typical day, really, is busy, mother and teacher, and then come home and tap at the keyboard and keep myself entertained.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. So speaking as a fellow writer, I have my kids are off during the day at school, so I do spend some time in my comfy clothes, and I'm good at procrastinating. So I get what you're saying. Sometimes it's good to have other things and be really busy, so that when you have that concentrated writing time, you can just get down to it and get on with it. So I like that. I do. So tell us a little bit about your books as well, and yeah, a little bit about the sort of inspiration behind your writing.
I've written 3 thrillers. I've started with a Kate Bradley, To Keep You Safe. So that was my debut. Came out just before lockdown, actually, and is a lot of books maybe explore about how far we would go to keep our own children safe. And I was quite interested in how far would we go to keep somebody else's child safe. Would that be different? And what if the teenager in question was extremely difficult and rude? And how far would somebody go? So it deals with gangs and people with troubled backgrounds. I used to work in homelessness, so a lot of people that have been in care and feel really passionately about how they're supported, actually. So that was that one. And then the second one was What I Did. And that's, if you really like sort of twisty thrillers, well, I hope they all would be, actually. I hope all my writing is sort of twisty thrillers, keeps a reader sort of on the edge of their seat, I hope. And What I Did is a really tricky, it's got tricky characters in it, and about how one woman manages to sort of survive her life, really. And I think, as you know, somebody who's really busy, I'm always trying to survive my life. But my life is a lot simpler than the characters here. And then I have just published Simon & Schuster in hardback, and you can see, if you go to the Independents, these are really nice, aren't they? They've got the sprayed edges, and the ones in the Independents have all been sort of signed by the author as well. So this came out in hardback in March, and it really is going into Orwell's world of 1984. I mean, I'm, as an English teacher, obviously I love literature, and it really struck me when I was teaching it one day how little we know about Julia. It was written in 1948, and I think the world for women has moved on so much since then. And we've got Julia, who's got no surname. We don't really know what job she does. She's really there as a foil for Winston Smith, as his love interest. And Oceania is such a sort of fascinating world. I thought, well, what was she doing when she wasn't with him? What was she up to? And I thought, wow, I don't know if it needed, Orwell definitely doesn't need rewriting, but I think a female perspective and how women experience control and difficult regimes is often different to how men experience difficult regimes. I do think that is true. And I think we're still worried about government, aren't we? We're still worried about surveillance, AI, and people worry about CCTV. I know when I talk to teenagers, they're not worried about being tracked or monitored, etc. But I still think there's a conversation, and I think if Orwell was still alive, I think he would still be talking about this now. So yeah, from Julia's point of view, definitely don't have to have read 1984. Obviously, as an English teacher, I'd encourage everyone to. But it's written as a standalone. But if you've read 1984, there'll be some sort of cute Easter eggs in there as well, obviously.
Ooh, very exciting. So when I was at the festival, I bought What I Did, and I'm reading that just now. Unfortunately, I've had very little time to read, so I've not been able to read as much of it as I'd like to, but I'm about halfway through, and I have to say I love the complexity of the characters. And while I was reading it, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that's going to be watching this, but there was an instance which, well, you talked about dead catting, a technique that you do, and I'd never heard of that before, and I was like, she's done that right here, and I was like, it really kind of threw me off because it like threw me a curveball, and it just kept, it just added much more to the story, just that extra kind of plot twist, and I was like, well, I love this. And then I feel as if the character, certain thing that happened in that moment with the character, I wasn't expecting it. It totally shocked me. I was like, whoa, that was not what I was expecting to see coming. So that was brilliant. So I just wanted to tell you my experience of how I'm feeling reading that book. And the Sisterhood, I will definitely purchase that as well and read it. I read 1984, and I feel personally that Orwell was so ahead of his time in his writing. It was quite amazing to think that he wrote that way back when. And then I think that there is a lot of conversations that could be had surrounding the theories behind that book and where we are now. So it's very, well, definitely within schools as well, could cause a lot of interesting points for topics of conversation. I'm sure you would agree with that. And being an English teacher, I can only imagine some of the things that your students ask you as well.
Well, that's right, and I think I took the conversations from Orwell and that the two characters have, and completely left those untouched. I was really keen not to change anything in his world or change the conversations that he had on the page, because it's full respect. It's just going inside the female mind, when we're having conversations, like even in this moment, we're in different places, we're thinking about different things. And it's like, well, what was Julia thinking when she was interacting with Winston? Because some of it, particularly now, with a sort of more modern gaze, it's so problematic. But I just thought there was a cracking story there behind the scenes. And
brilliant.
Yeah, I hope you think so when you get there.
Oh, I will. I just know I will. I know. So tell us a little bit about your writing process. I love hearing this, particularly from authors, because we all do things so differently, and that's also okay. But I just find it interesting to see what other people do. So tell us how you write. If you were sitting down to write a book, how do you do it? How do you edit it? Do you wait till the end? Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Yeah, give us a little bit of insight into your routine.
Yeah, I don't think I ever used to be a plotter. I used to be a pantser, and then I wrote a book that got me an agent, but it didn't get published. And I'd spent so long rewriting huge chunks of it. And obviously, a lot of writing is rewriting, and everything goes through massive editorial processes. So I'm not talking about that. I just mean sort of rethinking so much in terms of sort of the technicalities of plot, particularly if you're writing something that you really want to take a character on a journey with. So for me, I just thought I'll never not plot again. But I don't like to overplot, because I like to still, like the pantser in me, likes to not know everything, and then discover that. And we all do it, don't we? Perhaps when we're sitting in rooms on our own, and all of a sudden say, "Oh, I did not know that," and it's just so entertaining. It's my favourite way of entertaining myself. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And then so you still have that discovery. And I think that's what sort of keeps me interested, I think, is not plotting too much. So I still have those moments of discovery, but not pantsing it so much that I go and waste huge amounts of time, because I think we've all agreed, we're busy people, and to write thousands and thousands and thousands of words only for it to sort of be cut just seems a little bit tragic, really.
Yeah. Oh, tragic is definitely the right word. I think that I don't think that you start out the same way that you end up. I think a lot of it's like a learning experience. It certainly has been for me. And I tried doing the whole just, pantsing my way through a book, not really plotting it, leaving all the mistakes in there, but the stress of that was too much for me. So I like to edit as I'm going. I'll do like a couple of chapters while I'm on a roll and then go back and edit it. That's what works for me. But I tried it another way and I was like, no, not for me. So I feel as if it's quite good sometimes to try different ways so that you can find how you feel comfortable doing it. But yeah, I think that you got to have a little bit of a pantser in you as well, don't you? Because that's where your fresh ideas come from when you're in the moment. And I love that. And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't expect my character to do that. It's brilliant. So that, yeah, I agree. I totally agree. So tell us a little bit, you mentioned about you had an agent for your first book that didn't get published. Can you tell us a little bit about how you found your agent?
Yes, I actually found my agent in a really unusual way through my editor. And I had been picked up for a mentoring scheme and then got introduced to my agent. And I think I would really encourage people to understand that the publishing world seems to me, anyway, this is only my take on it, but it seems very much a relationships industry. The people are so nice and so helpful and encouraging, and I just it's who you meet to a degree, because there's so many talented writers out there, and I think that I was writing pretty well probably quite a long time before I got an agent, and I didn't know anybody in the publishing world. I wasn't, connected in any way. And it felt like an impossible way of entering, an impossible industry to sort of break into. I have to say, there's a lot of heartbreak in that, in trying to do something and believing that you're doing it, maybe, I don't know, we all read stuff, we go, and you just think, well, I can do that. I can do this, but not feeling like you know the right people. So it is constant knocking on doors. It's constant seeking opportunities. It's constant networking like we are now. I mean, that's how you meet people. And then those people, when they become published, they support you and you support them. And then you're more likely to go to events where you meet agents, and it's just a constant sort of recognizing that actually there's people behind the computer, really, when you send off your submission behind the email. So anything that's sort of where you're meeting people face to face, I would encourage that, really, because it took me a very long time, but obviously when agents receive work, they're so busy, they're doing the reading in their own time, so anything you can do where you meet people, I think, is just so helpful.
I would definitely be inclined to agree with that as well. And I think that the amount of submissions that agents get nowadays seems to have almost doubled and tripled for some of them. So I think that just creating opportunity is very, very important. And that certainly has worked for me as well in finding my agent. So I think that it's difficult. Sometimes it can just be like a lucky moment as well, where you just kind of meet somebody at kismet, just at the right moment. But I think the most important thing certainly has been for me is just sticking at it, perseverance, just constantly knowing that you've got something, having confidence in what you're doing as a writer. I know we all have imposter syndrome and moments of that, but I think just believing in yourself is really important as well, and that can be hard sometimes.
I remember there was this moment where I was just almost gave up. And writers always say that, don't they? The people who get published are the ones that don't give up. And I'd had some, I'd had a few years where I'd sort of done well in competitions, and I actually had an agent and then lost an agent before I got my current agent. So I'd had an agent, I'd lost an agent, and I just remember thinking, oh, this is taking so much of my headspace and my time, and we're busy people, blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, oh, is this worth it? And I had to really make peace with the fact that even if I never got published, would I still enjoy writing? And I thought, yeah, actually, I would. Actually, I still like sitting on the sofa late at night, going, oh, I did not know that, and entertaining myself. And if the only person that read my book was me, because my husband's not a reader, so I can't even voice those early edits on him, for goodness sakes. Then I just had to sort of make peace with that. But I think at that point, then things changed for me, actually, because you just stick at it, and as you say, you sort of almost make your own luck in a way.
Yeah, I think having you're never losing insight as to why you started this whole business, and to begin with, it was because you love writing, and you know that that's where you get some kind of solace. And I think that, with the situation that I'm in just now, is there's a lot of waiting. You're just waiting, waiting, waiting. But I've really got peace about that just now, and I'm finishing a book at the moment, which is a thriller, by the way. So I've taken a lot of guidance from the workshop that I did with you, and I want to say thanks for that. But yeah, I think that not losing the reason why you started it all in the first place is so important, and it keeps you going when you're having days that are bad. So I definitely think that is worth saying. So tell us a little bit about you had an agent, lost an agent, got another agent. Tell us about getting your first publishing deal and how that came about.
I think by the time it actually happened, I was so surprised. I just almost didn't believe it. I remember my agent actually has just retired, so I've got another agent with the same David Heim organisation. But Jane Gregory, who's very well known in the industry, she sent me an email and said we've got a 2-book offer, and I was just so amazed. I think maybe she rang me actually. Oh no, I think she said, "Can you ring me? I've got good news." So I sort of took this call, and I can't remember what the question was now. What was the question? How did it feel to get the publishing deal?
Just how did tell us a little bit about how your first publishing deal came about.
Yeah, so I wrote a book, got an agent, but they said that they couldn't market that because the market was saturated in what I'd written. So I had an agent, then I had to go away and write another book. And that felt quite loaded to me because I had secured an agent with a book, and it went out to publishers and it didn't get published. It nearly did, actually, nearly got picked up a couple of times, but it's really tricky, isn't it? Because you can write something, and if it's too similar to something else, then that publishing house doesn't want it. But if it's not similar enough, then that's not what they're sort of publishing at the time. Then it might not get picked up either. So I had some near misses. And so I went away, wrote another book, and the agent was like, no, I don't know. I know it wasn't me. I know it was her, because I've met lots of other writers that have worked with her and have found sort of similar experience. But then I got Jane Gregory, who's obviously a powerhouse, and set up the Orange Prize for Fiction and the Harrogate crime writing, and fantastic. But she couldn't market that book because it wasn't what editors were looking for at the moment. There was just too much of it. So I had to go away and write something else. Anyway, that did get picked up, and that was the thing that got me. That was to keep you safe, and that's what got me my deal and the believe it moment.
Brilliant. Can I just ask a question about those other books? Do you think they will get published one day?
To be quite honest, I think we don't change much, do we? I mean, I remember working in a nursing home with a man called Mr. Richardson, saying to me that he hadn't changed, and he was about in his 90s since he was 15. And I do think that's true, but I also think perhaps as writers, perhaps what interests us move on and change as well. And I don't know that I would want to go back there in a way. So I think I'd written a pretty good novel, but I think I always think that the next one's going to be the best one. So I'm kind of more interested in what's coming next rather than going back.
Yeah, I think there's something in that. I just thought I'm going to ask that question because I'm not sure how I would be myself with it. Because there was a point in where the book that I've just been, an agent's just taken me on for, I'd had so much rejection with that, and I thought, I think I'm going to have to shelf this. You know, I think I'm going to have to just leave it and then move on. But then, you know, the best thing in the world happens, so you're like, right, okay. But I think that, yeah, I think if you're going to always be progressing in your writing as well, I can understand why you would, you know, it's something that you can always say, well, I did that, but I'm moving on with something else. Um, so yeah, what I want to do is, it's given me a warning saying I've got 10 minutes left, so it's keeping me on track, this meeting. But I'm going to just ask a couple of the last questions here that we've got. What authors do you like to read yourself for inspiration?
Oh, I wouldn't say there's like one author for inspiration. I would find inspiration from loads of different writers. I think there were sort of two books that fundamentally influenced me as a writer, actually. And one was Before I Go to Sleep, I think. That was just fabulous.
Oh,
And the
that's
other
great.
one was Room by Emma Donoghue. Yeah, they're both fabulous, and they both were really interesting in terms of viewpoint. And I think those two really, and I could cherry pick from lots of different writers, lots of different books, but I think those two really constantly remind me about how viewpoints interesting. And I have it on very good authority as of yesterday that is what editors are looking for at the moment. They are looking for interesting viewpoints. So I would really encourage people to look at their sort of current manuscript and think, how can I continue to make this viewpoint even more compelling, even more interesting? And that's certainly what's interesting. I think that was a sort of breakthrough moment for me as a writer, realizing that that's what I'm interested in. How we express the stories is, you know, you can get that initial idea, can't you? And there's so much to learn as writers, you know, how to craft lovely sort of similes and metaphors, pace, realistic dialogue. There's so much to learn, but its viewpoint, I think, is the thing I keep coming back to.
Yeah. No, that's excellent, and two very good books to give inspiration for the type of books that you write. I can see how that could have panned out, absolutely.
Mm.
And good recommendations for anyone listening. If you haven't read those books, go and get them because they're fantastic. Okay, so if you were stuck on a desert island, you're allowed to take a series, any series that you want for company, and one standalone. What would you take with you?
I think this series has to be Narnia because I think
Oh,
I'm
yay.
stuck on a desert island and I think it's very immersive. I just think it's terribly immersive, isn't it? And the other one would be completely different. It would be The Stand by Stephen King
Oh,
because that is
brilliant.
also so immersive
Yeah.
and so very different. So I would flip between the two depending on how gloomy and alone I felt.
Right, good. And The Stand is such a long book that it would keep you going for quite a while.
Until the
Okay,
rescue
so
aircraft comes, I hope.
yeah. So tell us, Kate, what is next for you? What are you writing now? Are you allowed to say a little bit about what's coming next, or give us a
Yeah,
glimpse?
definitely. So it's another thriller.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's another thriller with Simon and Schuster, and it's what's classed as a near dystopian. So near it's now,
Mhm.
but you just don't know what's going on now because I'm still interested in um, how interesting our world is now, I think. And I've gone younger on the protagonist again. So in my first book, To Keep You Safe, one of the protagonists is Destiny, and she's a teenager. I haven't gone that young, but yeah, so it's a younger woman, and I really like story where you see personal growth. So lots of personal growth in challenging circumstances, again, funnily enough.
Oh, that's so interesting. The book that I'm just about to finish is near dystopian as in now as well. So I can't wait to read that. Actually, that'll be probably give me some, you know, when I'm going ready to do a draft edit, if it's still not done by that point when your book comes out, I'll read it for, you know, give me some guidance. It'll be good.
Brilliant.
Um, okay, well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on to Meet the Author with Shelley Mack. It's been lovely to see you again, Kate. can you finish off the show by giving us a little bit of your advice and wisdom for any aspiring writers out there?
Absolutely don't give up. Absolutely don't give up. Otherwise I'll come and find you, because you might be so close and you don't know how close you are. And also get good advice. I think that the people who get published, when I look at the commonalities, they're people who will take advice. You don't have to take all advice, do you? When somebody looks at your work, you can choose to pick and choose. But I think those people who listen to people who know about the industry or know about story, I would encourage you to take advice and not give up.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. I hope you have a brilliant day. And I know it's going to be a busy one, because it always will be with you. Same for myself too, but I wish you every success in your writing career, your continued success. And just know that you have a fan here, and I will be buying your books and reviewing them for you. And please keep in touch as well. Take care.
Yes, I was going to say, please keep in touch.
Yes, definitely. Thanks again, Kate. Have a great day. Bye.